Hi everyone. I am Sane. In this video, we are going to look at 5 possible JavaScript interview questions. Let's get started. One. Create a function that checks if given values are palindromes. But what is a palindrome? A palindrome is a word, phrase, or sequence that reads the same backwards as forwards. For example, level, radar, civic, madam, tenant, rotator, and etc. Let's start writing some code and create that function. For this, I am going to create script.js and index.html file. The HTML file is basically for looking at our results in the browser console. And now I am going to add my HTML5 boilerplate and include a link to my script file. Now I am creating my check palindrome function. This is an ES6 arrow function. If you don't know what an arrow function is and how it works, you can check it out. And this function takes an argument. I am going to create a given word variable, and take that argument and convert it to lowercase and store that value into our variable. I am assuming you were told not to use any method while you were writing this function. So we are going to write it without using any method. I am going to create a new reversed word variable, and its value is going to be an empty string. After that, I am creating a loop. The code inside this block will execute as long as the I is smaller than the length of the given word. Then we are going to write something like this. This code will basically create our reversed word. Let's take a closer look at what this code does. Let's assume that the given word is Tesla. That means that our code will be executed 5 times because the length of the given word is 5. On the first iteration, the value we are going to add to our reverse word variable is going to be the letter A. On the second one, it's going to be the letter L. And the third one, it's going to be the letter S, and so on. And when our loop has finished, our reverse word variable is going to be like this, which is the reverse of our given word variable. Now let's go back to our code and continue to write our function. We have our given word and the reverse version of it. Now we can compare them and check if they are the same or not. If they are the same, I am going to write to the console that the given value is a palindrome. If they are not, I am going to write that it's not a palindrome. Now let's execute our function with some different values. After that, we will go to the browser console and see if our function works or not. As we see on the console, it says that the madam and the tenant are palindromes, but JavaScript and Tesla are not. That means that our function works. Now let's jump to the next question. 2. Create a function that calculates the average of a given array. The definition of average is a calculated central value of a set of numbers. To calculate it, add up all the numbers, then divide by how many numbers there are. Let's not waste any time and create our function. As before, we have a script.js and an index.html file. In the script.js file we have some variables, and these variables are basically arrays of numbers. And these are the averages of arrays of numbers. We are going to use these variables when we execute our function at the end. Now I am going to create calc average function, and this function is going to be an ES6 arrow function as well. And this function takes an array as an argument. I will create a sum variable with a default value of 0. And then I am going to take the length of the array and store it into my new count variable. And in this function as well, I'm assuming you were told not to use any method. Because of that, I am going to create a loop and calculate our sum of numbers. I am going to add the values at every index of the given array to the sum variable. The value of this sum variable is going to be equal to the total of these numbers. Now, to calculate the average, we are going to divide the sum by the count. Then I am going to write this to the console. After we finish the function, we can execute it and pass the arrays we have as parameters. Let's go to the browser console and see if our function works or not. As we see on the console, our function calculates the averages correctly. Now we can go to the next question. 3. Create a function that checks if the given values are anagram for each other. You don't know what an anagram is? Let me explain. An anagram is a word or phrase formed by rearranging the letters, such as listen and silent, Tom Marvolo Riddle, and I am Lord Voldemort, Santa and Satan, and etc. Now that we know what an anagram is, let's not waste any time and write some code. In the script.js file, we have some variables. When we finish writing the function, we are going to use these variables to check if they are anagrams for each other or not. Now I am going to create my checkAnagram function. And this function is going to take 2 arguments. Then I take the first argument and convert it to lowercase and store it in my new first word variable. We are doing this in case the given word starts or contains any capital letter. If the given parameters are more than one word, this will remove the white spaces between those words. And then, with this method, I am taking all the letters in the argument and putting them into an array. Afterward, I am sorting this array by using the sort method. Now that we have our sorted array, we can use the join method on it and create our new string. Then I am going to apply the same methods to the second argument and store that value to my new second word variable. Now let's take a closer look at what we did by applying these methods to our arguments. Now that we have our function, let's call it with some parameters. And these parameters will be Tom Marvolo Riddle and I am Lord Voldemort. And now let's see what we did with the methods that we applied to these parameters. First, we called the toLowerCase method. We are doing this because JavaScript is a case-sensitive programming language, and if you try to compare an uppercase letter to its lowercase version, it will return false. Our variables are going to look like this after converting the parameters to lowercase. And then we called the replaceAll method. With this method, I am replacing all the white spaces with empty strings, so this basically removes all the white spaces from our variables. After that, we called the split method, and what split does is it takes a string and converts it to an array of the letters of that string. Therefore, our variables are going to be arrays of letters. Then we sorted our array. And finally, with the join method, we convert our array to a string. Now we are going to compare these 2 variables. If they are the same, that means that the given parameters are anagrams for each other. If they are not, that means they are not anagrams. Let's finish our function. Now I am back to my code editor. For comparing my variables, I am going to use an if statement. If first word and second word are equal, I will write to the console that the given values are anagrams. Else, the given values are not anagrams. Now let's execute our function with the variables we have. Now we can go to the browser console and check if our function works or not. If I open my browser console, it says that Tom Marvolo Riddle and I am Lord Voldemort are anagrams. Listen and silent are anagrams as well, but React and Angular are not anagrams. That means our function works, and we can go to the next question. 5. Create a function that takes an array as an argument, and converts the first letter of its values to uppercase. Now I am back to my code editor. As you can see, I have a variable and I am going to use this variable when I execute my function at the end. I am creating my toUpper function. And this function takes an array as an argument. Then I am going to create a new variable, and its value is going to be an empty array. Afterward, I am creating a loop. And in this loop, I will create another new variable. Then I am going to take every item in the given array, replace their first letters with the uppercase version of themselves, and store that value into my new variable. Then I am going to add my new item variable to my empty array with the push method. After that loop, I am writing that updated array to the console. Then we can call our function with the variable we have. Let's go to the browser console and check if the our function works or not. As we see on the console, every item of the given array is now capitalized. Now we can go to our next and last question. 5. How to check if an array contains any element of another array. Now I go back to my script.js file, and as you can see we have two variables. These variables are arrays of numbers. Now I am going to check if any item in this array contains any element in this array. For this, I am creating a new variable and naming it doesContain. Then I am going to use some method, and whatever that method returns, I will store that value into my variable. Here, I am looping through the first array, checking every item, and if the second array contains any of these items as well, this function will return true. Now let's write our variable to the browser console to see if its value is true or false. As we see on the console, it says true. This means that the second array contains at least one of the values of the first array. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel.